What is up, Packers fans? Happy Victory Monday. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Today's show is presented to you by Habush Rottier. Packers defeat the Seahawks 30-13. I am so excited to be partnering with Habush Rottier. They know the Packers. They know Wisconsin. They speak Wisconsin. They have over 13 office locations in Wisconsin, including 7 minutes from Lambeau and 5 minutes from Camp Randall. Do me a favor. When you need a local, reputable personal injury attorney that's going to work for you, make sure you work with Habush. When you call Habush, you're going to talk to a lawyer directly. The number is 800-242-2874 or 800-2HABUSH, or you can visit their website at habush.com. Habush Rottier, national reputation, hometown service. So let's kind of recap this game in a little bit of a nutshell. Not perfect, right? But a really solid win. We're going to talk through absolutely all of it today. We'll get through the highs, the lows, the good, the bad. There's that moment in the second half where it feels like they're maybe playing with their food a little bit. There's other times where they look really, really good. I think there is a ton of positive takeaways in this one. We will get to all of it today. Let's start with our Luigi's Pizza player of the game. There's nobody else that I can go to on this one other than Edgerrin Cooper. 7 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups, 2 quarterback hits, an interception on only 34 snaps of defense. He felt like he was everywhere, and he only played 34 snaps of defense. That is unbelievable. He is all over the place. We'll talk about Edgerrin Cooper more in just a moment. It is a Luigi's Victory Monday. All you have to do is use hashtag on Twitter, Luigi's Victory Monday, and follow at Luigi's Pizza, Luigi'sPizza on Twitter, and you are entered to win a free case of pizzas from Luigi's. That's a great deal. You are going to want to get in on that. Again, just use the hashtag Luigi's Victory Monday, follow Luigi's Pizza on Twitter, and you are entered to win. It is a Luigi's Victory Monday. And by the way, if you have not partaken in the Luigi's Victory Monday celebration, got yourself a Luigi's Victory Pizza, you are missing out. It's the absolute best. I'll be doing it today. I'm going ultra thin crust today. Probably I'm going to go sausage and pepperoni today is what I'm going with, but it's worth it. It's the absolute best. It's a great tradition. Get in on it. You're not going to want to miss it. Their pizzas are freaking amazing. But Edgerrin Cooper, a Luigi's Pizza player of the game. Let's get into all the key takeaways before we start breaking down the offense, the defense, the special teams. We'll get through everything. I have 5 key takeaways in this game. All right. Number 1, I've never quite seen a team that can score 30 points rather easily, while also at times making it look so incredibly hard. It's the weirdest thing. They have scored 30 points per game over the last 4 games. Just like it's nothing. Like they're just putting up 30-point performances one after the other. May I remind you, the Kansas City Chiefs, with one Patrick Mahomes at quarterback and Travis Kelce at tight end, you may know of them. They only have 1 loss on the season. They have 0. Let me repeat that, 0 30-point performances so far this season. Not a single one. Green Bay has 4 in a row. And yet at times it looks so inconsistent, so painful, just, can you stop playing with your food a little bit? Can you just go out and execute? But they still find a way to get almost 30 points or more in almost every game. It's remarkable. I've never seen anything quite like it. And it's why this team's ceiling to me is so high. They're putting up 30-point performances, and they're like playing at like 70% of their capacity at best. Imagine what it's like if they actually click on all cylinders, because we see it in flashes, and we've kind of been talking about this all year, right? And this probably just to some extent is who they are on offense, and that's probably okay because they're putting up more than 30 points per game. But my goodness, if you could just put it all together and actually play a 4-quarter, football game. It is so close. It is so tantalizing. It honestly feels, and this is going to sound, it honestly feels like if they went out and performed consistently through the course of a game, even against a good team on the road with a good defense, it feels like they could put up like 50 points. It's really incredible. So it's not quite there yet, but again, don't take these for granted either. 30 points on the road, tough Seattle Seahawks defense. Seattle had everything to play for in this game, and you still put up 30. And I want to bring up a different game in this one. Ravens 35-14 win over the Giants on Sunday, right? as a Packer fan, right? You probably didn't watch much of Giants and Ravens unless you wanted to, go see Tim Boyle play or something like that. As a Packer fan, how do you look at that Ravens win over the Giants? 35-14. When you think of that game, right? What are you thinking of? Are you caveating it? Well, it was just the Giants. Are you caveating it? Well, Tim Boyle was quarter. My initial reaction when I look at a score 35-14, I didn't really, watch much of the game, right? Maybe saw a little bit of it on red zone or whatever. My initial reaction to that is a good football team going on the road and just taking care of business. 35-14 in New York on the road. Great game. Great victory for the Ravens. Exactly what you would have expected out of that game. I would not caveat it with, well, it's just the Giants, who's, by the way, the worst team in football. The worst team in football, the New York Giants. They won 35-14, not caveating it with it's just the Giants, not caveating it with, well, Tim Boyle ended up in the game at quarterback or anything like that. I'm just saying it's exactly what I would have expected out of the Baltimore Ravens in that game. A really nice, solid 35-14 win on the road against the Giants. No trap game, no nothing. They just took care of business on the road. Nice win. But when we watch it from a Packers standpoint and you only get a 30-13 win over the Seattle Seahawks, it's like, well, look at all these things that they could have done different or better. If you're looking at this from a Packers scrutinizing standpoint, where of course we want everything to go perfect, but it never, ever really quite does, right? Everyone else will look at this from outside of the league and be like, it's a really good win. 30-13 on the road in Seattle against a team that's won 4 in a row. Their defense has been playing fantastic. You're not caveating it with, well, Geno Smith went out of the game and Sam Howell had to come in or whatever. You're just looking at it as a really impressive Packers win on the road. Seattle had everything to play for in this game. Seahawks win and they remain in the playoffs. Right now, they are out of the playoffs. Now, Seattle can get back in. It's not over. They're not eliminated, but they go from in the NFC and leading the NFC West and being the team that's most likely to get in to now a team that's on the outside looking in. It's a massive loss for Seattle. They had everything to play for in this game, and Green Bay just never really even made it a game. Green Bay went in, really dominated this from start to finish. And yes, we will go through and we'll nitpick some things. And the Green Bay did not play a perfect game in this one. There's no question about that. There are things that they can clean up. There was that lull in the game that maybe when you're on the road or just playing Seattle with Sam Howell in the game at that point, that you can get away with. We saw against the Lions last week. They just happened to have the lull for the Packers at the beginning of the game last week. That's when it happened. And that was the period that cost them punt, turnover, right? Well, Green Bay had a similar stretch, probably even a worse stretch against Seattle in this game that you can get away with it because it's Seattle. You can't get away with that stretch against Minnesota. You can't get away against Detroit or Philly. You've got to play a 4-quarter football game, and Green Bay could not quite piece that fully together, which leaves you a little bit wanting more, leaves you a little bit frustrated in the middle of that game. Feels like they're playing with their food or kind of sleepwalking through portions of the game. That's what you want to see get cleaned up. But on the whole, in totality, it's a very impressive, very good win for Green Bay, and there's a lot of positive takeaways. That was number one, not quite there yet, but right, like a really good performance. Number two, we talked about it as the Luigi's Pizza player of the game, but Edgerrin Cooper, but I want to expand upon it even further. Edgerrin Cooper is a star. There are things that he needs to continue to work on. I'm not saying that there's not. I'm not saying that this is a finished product. I'm not saying that, he can, just put it on cruise control from here on out and he's just an automatic. He's everywhere at all times, all at once, and he is a nightmare to have to play against. His speed all over the field hits different. And it's remarkable that in, again, a game of unbelievable athletes all over the field, that this linebacker for the Packers is the one that when you put the game on, he's the one that just jumps off the field, right? He jumps off the tape, he jumps off the whatever you want to call it. He's the one where your eyes just go to and go, dude, that dude is different. He is built different. He's an absolute animal. And he was all over this game in only 34 snaps, 7 tackles, 1 sack, 2 TFLs, 2 PBUs, 2 QB hits, an interception. We joke about Eric Stokes not having a PBU or an interception in 3. That's a former first-round pick in Eric Stokes, who over a 1,000-plus snap period of time can't get a PBU or an INT. And Edgerrin Cooper, your second round linebacker in this game just stacks the box score. Like, again, players can't even fathom doing. Like, it's really remarkable what he was able to do. Almost came up with another interception in this game as well. You can use him as a blitzer. You can use him as a spy. You can use him in cover. Today I thought was his best that he's played in coverage. There's another play where they have a little Jackson Smith and Jigba, like kind of middle screen, and he just sorts through it and just immediately makes the tackle. It feels like there's an extra guy in the field for Green Bay when he's on the field. It feels like Green Bay's playing with 12 guys. No pun intended with the 12th man for Seattle. It feels like there's 12 guys on the field just because he can get from point A to point B in such a hurry. And I think the thing that's also really impressive about it is it never really quite feels like he's overrunning the play or that he's out of control. It always feels like he's fast, but he's playing within himself. You kind of juxtapose it to like Luke Musgrave, right? When we saw Musgrave early on in his career in his rookie season, we'll see what he can do when he comes back from injury. But it almost felt like his body was going too fast for his mind. It was like, it didn't really feel like it was always cohesive and like all together, right? It didn't really always feel like he knew how to handle that speed at tight end. Edgerrin Cooper is flying around, but he's playing within himself. It's not too much for him. It's not like he can't change directions. It's not like he's overrunning plays. It's just fast. It's just unadulterated, pure speed that you cannot teach. And there's all the complaints always about, well, Green Bay cares too much about athleticism and developing players. And well, sometimes you get an Edgerrin Cooper out of it. You get a pure raw athlete that needs a little bit of seasoning. Hello, Edgerrin Cooper. This is what you can get sometimes by taking those home run swings on super freak athlete dudes. Because when it hits, it has the ability to be special. And Edgerrin Cooper can hit and is special. I just don't see it being worse than what we've seen so far. Like this is the standard. We're seeing a player that can take over a game defensively. If Xavier McKinney were not on this team, we would be, I think, having a real honest conversation already about is Edgerrin Cooper like on the cusp of being the best defensive player on this team, or at least already in the conversation. That's to me how good he can be. And I'm saying this while wanting to be as cautious as possible to not put too much on this player, because we have a tendency, I believe, is just life to bring people up just to tear them down, to set these high expectations that it's really hard to continue to, meet. And then when they don't meet them, it's not like Edgerrin Cooper saying like, yep, I'm going to be the greatest of all time. So I like putting those expectations on a player is always something that I'm hesitant to do, because then if they don't beat him or meet those high expectations, it's like, oh, look they never really met his expectations. So it's like, well, you set him in the first place, right? But I just think he's that special. I really, really do. And like I said, job not done. Thinks he can do better. Needs to get that playbook down more. And if he does, right, if he gets the playbook down and if he understands where to align and everything like that, he's going to end up playing 50, 60 snaps instead of just 34. And I'm sure they were probably easing him back from the injury and stuff like that too, which is probably really smart to do in this game. But Edgerrin Cooper just needs to be on the field on every play. Here's the other thing too. Made 2 tackles on special teams. And if you remember that big hit by Eric Wilson, Cooper kind of set that up. Got down there first, kind of impacted the play, kind of held up the returner a little bit, and then Eric Wilson made that big hit. So kind of like 2.5 plays on special teams. Like he's already been a gunner on punt team. Like he's just a freak. He's really, really fun. And that type of impact from Edgerrin Cooper is beyond noteworthy in this game. Beyond noteworthy. The next big takeaway, pass rush. 7 sacks, 12 QB hits. Let's be real. We can be real, right? Seattle's offensive line, not good. They were not good in this game. They're not good, and they weren't good. Green Bay's faced some bad offensive lines this year and did not take advantage of it. Seattle faced a beat-up Green Bay secondary in this game. They didn't really take advantage of it. Green Bay last week played a completely beat-up, Detroit Lions defensive front. They didn't take advantage of it. Just because you get the matchup doesn't mean that it always is going to go in your favor. Today, Green Bay got the matchup, Packers defensive front, and guess what? You know what Seattle's offensive line, I'm sure, was thinking going into this game? We've seen the Packers defensive line on tape. This is going to be a get-right game for us. We're going to be the one that's going to win that matchup. That's what they're thinking going into it. Like we watched that Packers defensive line on tape all week. We feel really good going into this game, where this is going to be a get right game for the Seahawks offensive line, and they're going to get a lot of confidence coming out of this game. Not so fast. Packers defensive front came ready to play. They took advantage of their matchups. And this, in my opinion, was the best the defensive line has looked all season long, including that Titans game where they had 8 sacks. A lot of that was in kind of garbage time at the end. But this, to me, it felt legitimate all throughout the game. So, yeah, we can be real that Seattle's offensive line is not good. I still thought this is the best that the Packers defensive line has looked. And that's a step in the right direction. All right. So much of the NFL is winning when you have advantageous matchups. It's really tough to win against the best of the best, regardless of what position you are. If you're a really great corner, but you're going against a great wide receiver, it still is tough. Like it is like if you get the wrong matchup on the wrong day, it doesn't matter how great of a player you are. It can be a really tough day at the office. But over the course of the season, like you're going to get some advantageous matchups. You better take advantage of them. Green Bay got the advantageous matchup in this one, and they took advantage of it. 7 sacks, 12 QB hits is the best the Packers defensive front has looked all year. It was a variety of guys. And Egbare and Rashawn Gary, Devontae Wyatt, Brenton Cox, just a little bit of everyone, right? Carl Brooks had the sack. So I thought this was a really impressive performance from the Packers defensive front. You love seeing the pressure. You love seeing the QB hits. And it was a huge difference maker in this game. The other key takeaway, or the next one, they got off to that strong start. I love that first drive. Man, did I love that first drive. Just here's Josh Jacobs. Good luck. He's coming right at you. Stop him if you can. Spoiler, they couldn't. I thought that was a tone setting. We want the ball. We're going to score, but unlike Matt Hasselbeck, we're actually going to do it. And you can't stop Josh Jacobs, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. I love that. Love that first drive. Love the tone setting. But then they went out and they added on to it after that. Get off to a 14-0 lead. Let's just put it this way. Green Bay in their first 2 drives scored 14 points. Seattle scored 13 in the entire game. It might have been over basically right then and there with those first 2 touchdown drives. I know Seattle made it annoying middle of the game, right? But Packers got their 14 points right away. It looked really impressive. I wish they could have put up a little bit more, especially in the middle of the middle of that game. But they got off to the strong start, and it really carried Green Bay. It made it so that Seattle went away from the running game early on. And Green Bay was just able to kind of lean on them the rest of the game until they collapsed, and they ultimately did. So I love the strong start. And then they finally got a quality road win. We can, again, put the asterisk next to it because Geno Smith went out, whatever you want to do. We knew going into this game that this had the ability to be a really tough game and a game that Seattle could win. Green Bay didn't even give them the opportunity. And to me, there's no chance that even Geno Smith, that they're not winning that game. And I think Green Bay could have been more aggressive had they needed to be more aggressive. We'll talk about that in just a moment as well. But they got that good quality road win. This is not going to be, I think, quite to the extent of what they maybe are going to face in the wild card divisional and conference championship games should they get there. But I think this is, again, showing that you can go on the road all the way West Coast, set the tone early, and come away with a big win. And Seattle, again, had a ton to play for in this game, and Green Bay just beat them flat out. So key takeaways, still not quite there, and some things that you'd like to have a little bit more, but an impressive performance. Edgerrin Cooper dominant. Pass rush looked great. Got off to that strong start and got that strong quality road win. Let's look closer at the offensive performance for Green Bay. Here were their drives through the course of the day. 10 plays, 63 yards, touchdown. 8 plays, 80 yards, touchdown. 8 plays, 51 yards, field goal. 7 plays, 83 yards, field goal. So great start, touchdown, touchdown, field goal, field goal. Then second half, 3 plays, 6 yards, punt. 7 plays, 65 yards, field goal. Then came the really tough stretch. 3 plays, 2 yards, punt. 2 plays, 6 yards, fumble. 3 plays, 4 yards, punt. 7 plays, 45 yards, turnover on downs. So punt, fumble, punt, turnover on downs. We talked about that opening sequence, punt, turnover for Green Bay being extremely costly against Detroit. Well, here you go. Punt, fumble, punt, turnover on downs. You can't have stretches like that. If you want a negative to take away from this game, that's it. They had that lull. Once again, the defense gave them opportunities. The defense gave them a ton of opportunities to just put the game away. And instead they go 3 plays, 2 yards, punt. 2 plays, 6 yards, fumble. 3 plays, 4 yards, punt. 7 plays, 45 yards, turnover on downs. Those 3 middle drives 12 yards on 8 plays and a turnover. That can't happen. That cannot happen. That's something they're going to have to learn from and figure out how to close those games. And like I said, not play with your food in the middle of that game. After the turnover on downs, they go 3 plays, 27 yards, touchdown after the Edgerrin Cooper interception. Then they go 3 plays, 8 yards, punt, and then it was the end of the game after that. So touchdown, field goal, punt, fumble, punt, turnover on downs, touchdown, punt. Overall, they went 61 plays, 369 yards on offense, 6.0 yards per play, and 30 total points. 20 for 27 passing, 229 net passing yards, 34 rushing attempts, 140 rushing yards, 4.1 yards per rush, and 1 turnover was their overall offensive performance, excuse me. There are just some notes around the offense in this one. As I mentioned earlier, love the opening drive. Josh Jacobs had an interesting day. So 26 carries, 94 yards and a touchdown, 3.6 yards per carry, 4 catches, 42 yards. He totaled 30 touches for 136 yards, a touchdown, and a fumble. So 30 touches is a lot, 136 yards. Again, only 3.6 yards per carry, but averaged over 10 yards per catch, evens out a little bit, has the touchdown, but also has the big fumble. I thought Josh Jacobs was good in this game outside of the fumble. I didn't think the offensive line was great. They had no sacks allowed, which was great. That's a huge part of this game. So I give him credit for that. I thought there were times, especially again, if when you really wanted to kind of put him away in the second half, if the offensive line could have leaned on Seattle's defensive front a little bit more, generated those opportunities in the run game, Green Bay just would have salted away this win and it would have been easy, right? And they just couldn't do that. And it just wasn't consistent enough. I love that opening drive from Green Bay running the ball. And then after that, it got a lot stickier and it was really difficult to run. And that to me is something that Green Bay's still going to have to work on because you want to be able to lean on teams with that running game. It does feel a little bit like the spin series that teams are catching on to it a little bit more. They're basically just, gunning guys in the, while that whole thing's going on, that there's going to be somebody in the backfield and you have to navigate it. And it just kind of is that long developing run play, right? So that's been a little bit of an issue. I thought they did well with the screen game in this one to kind of open some things up. I thought they did well on their wide run game. Some of the reverses and pop passes and sweeps and things like that, I thought worked pretty well. But you've got to give Josh Jacobs those holes and those opportunities because he will make the other team pay more often than not. It just didn't feel good enough throughout the course of the day. I wanted a little bit more efficiency from that run offense. I didn't think it was a Jacobs fault. Thought it was a little bit, just wanting a little bit more from that offensive line. Loved Romeo Doubs' return in this game. Only 3 catches, but 40 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also generated a pass interference call right before halftime. I thought his return was noteworthy. Kudos to Mina Kimes for kind of predicting that on our show earlier this week and saying that this was going to be a key player for Green Bay and whether or not he was in this game and able to go. He really was. I thought the opening touchdown that he had where he just powered through, I think it was on the second drive, right? He catches the touchdown on the slant and just works his way in. I thought that was an awesome play. And then the final touchdown too. And that is a ridiculous catch from Romeo Doubs. And, we talked last week about Shawn Michaels because you had the Tucker Kraft kip up and it looked very reminiscent and Shawn Michaels commented on it. I have another Shawn Michaels reference for you wrestling fans out there. It looked like Romeo Doubs found his smile in this game. And that's a HBK reference when he was, he finally found his smile again. But it felt like Romeo found his smile. Romeo usually very just straight-faced, serious. He was having fun out there. I love that from Romeo. He was celebrating. He was doing little things in the end zone. Like you saw Romeo having fun. I love it. I absolutely love it. I like fun Romeo Doubs. Give me more of that. It felt like he was extra happy, motivated, and I thought that was awesome. So I thought this was a big game from Romeo Doubs, even though it was only 3 catches. Came up clutch, came up huge, forced a PI as well. Really, really good stuff from Romeo in this game, including 2 really impressive touchdown catches. Christian Watson, 3 catches, 56 yards, and a forced pass interference penalty as well. I thought he had another nice game. Came up with a tough catch on a first down conversion. Of course, another big play down the field where he made a great toe tap along the sidelines. It feels like Christian Watson is really kind of finding some different ways to impact the game, and I really love that. He went down with what kind of looked like an injury at the end of the game. Sounds like he just got a cleat and his cleat to the leg in some capacity and is good to go moving forward. So no concern there with Christian Watson. Liked what he brought to this game. Jordan Love, no turnover worthy plays again, which you love to see. I mean, he's just taking unbelievable care of the football. 20 of 27, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, a 123.8 rating, had 1 carry for 4 yards. I did think his deep ball was a little bit iffy in this one. Not quite what we saw earlier in the year. Got to get that cleaned up a little bit. I thought there were some opportunities out there to maybe hit some throws that he didn't. Him and Dobbs on that play action one, I think he thought Dobbs was going to sit. Dobbs kind of kept going. Even then, it was probably a little bit high into the left for Dobbs either way. So I thought there were some balls there that he could have completed. This is one of those games that you kind of just look back and say, all right, I think Jordan Love kind of has made it at this point, right? When you can have a 20 of 27, 229, 2 touchdown, 123.8, unbelievable passer rating day, and you're like, yeah, it was fine. You've kind of made it. Like, that's a really good game. That's a really good game from Jordan. And it was just kind of like, yeah, good performance. Expect that from Jordan at this point, or even better potentially. And I thought there was some plays out there that he maybe could have made as well. But if this is your he was good game, well, that's a pretty good sign because he was really good in this one overall. And like I said, 123.8 quarterback rating, no turnover worthy plays. I mean, big touchdown to Dobbs at the end. And, again, came up with some big throws. Christian Watson along the sideline. You would take this from your starting quarterback almost every single game. And it was just like, it was a good game for Jordan. So I think it's a very good sign when your quarterback is having a day like that and you're just like, yeah, it was good. It was fine. It's good. I think the Bears would take that every single week and not even blink twice. Like, they'd just be like, oh my God, yes, that'd be amazing. It was just like, yeah, it was a good game from Jordan. But I did like the way that he played. I love the way he's taking care of the football right now. And then, of course, you have the Matt LaFleur aggressiveness or lack thereof. He owned the end of the first half in his press conference. Don't know how much we need to go over it. It was probably the worst 2-minute sequence that I can remember from Green Bay in his entire time in Green Bay. And I knew what he was thinking. And he kind of talked about it too in the presser of like, he wanted to make sure that there was no way that they were going to get the ball back and have a chance to double up or anything like that. I get it to some extent. I mean, they started that drive deep in their own territory, and you really don't want to have a situation where they get the momentum right before halftime and pick up some points and then get the ball to start the second half and double up or anything like that. I get that. But once they got into Seattle territory, they needed to be more aggressive. And you get the ball in the 4-yard line on a PI and you just can't even do anything because you've run out of time. There was some poor clock management. LaFleur owned it. He knows it. Those are good lessons to learn at this point, especially out of a win. You got to be much better than that. I don't have any major concern because I've never seen Green Bay have a poor management in like a 2-minute situation like that. Not that I can recall off the top of my head. Matt's usually really good at that stuff. Jordan's usually really good at that stuff. Again, I could kind of see what they were thinking of. Hey, let's just make sure we get the field goal here, go up 3 scores, go up 17, not give them the ball back and take all the momentum in at half. And by the way, once you got to the 4-yard line, rather than taking the shot there, I completely wholeheartedly agree with taking the field goal. I wish they would have hurried up sooner so they could have, been able to get a different, maybe a couple shots in the end zone before having to make that decision. But once it got to 4 seconds left, you've got a situation where you feel like 3-score game is going to win you that game. This is not about sexy points. This is not about trying to get as big of a win as possible. It's about making sure you get out of Seattle with a victory. And when you can keep a game a 3-score game, 3-possession game, that's a recipe for success, especially as they, had opportunity, or especially as they had a backup quarterback in the game for the good chunk of that, second half and everything. So I thought that was 1,000,000% the right call and had no issue with it. Just wish they would have been not in that position in the first place because they hurried up prior to that pass interference call where it left you with only 4 seconds. But Matt owned it. They'll be better. And again, overall, when they made those decisions to continue to make it 3-score games, I totally agreed with those. I thought there's times to be aggressive. There's times to just take the points. I think in those situations where you can make it a 3-score game, especially there again with Sam Howell at quarterback, you're just going to win. You're just going to win that far more often than not. Keep it at 3 possessions. Keep it so that they never get close. They never got within 10 points at any point in the second half. I think you feel really good about where Green Bay was at every point in this game. It never felt like Seattle was close. And I credit Matt for being conscientious and cautious when making those decisions. You just never wanted to give Seattle any momentum. Green Bay did a good job of that. They still come out with a 17-point win, score 30 plus, limit to 13. It's a very good overall performance. And by the way, it wasn't like Matt was ultra conservative. I mean, they're up 17. They get the ball, and Matt goes play action shot down the field. They got the opportunity to Dobbs, but Love and Dobbs just not, weren't able to connect on it. And then you have the Josh Jacobs fumble on the next play. So it wasn't like he was, completely cowardly or anything like that. Just probably could have been a little bit more aggressive before halftime, which again, he owned. And to me, it was more execution than it was play calling or anything like that. They just need to execute a little bit better to start off that second half. And again, you can't have that lull where it goes punt, fumble, punt, turnover on downs. It's a rough stretch, and Green Bay's got to be better than that at every point in the game. Not saying perfect, just saying you can't have stretches like that. Not when you have that much talent on offense. Now let's just jump over to the defensive performance. Here was the drive summary for Green Bay. 4 plays, 12 yards punt, 7 plays, 40 yards field goal, 12 plays, 63 yards interception, 8 plays, 19 yards punt, 5 plays, 20 yards field goal, 3 plays, -6 yards punt, 3 plays, 0 yards punt, 5 plays, 45 yards touchdown, 3 plays, 5 yards punt, 2 plays, -6 yards interception, 3 plays, -4 yards punt, 3 plays, 10 yards, end of game. So 4 drives that went for 0 or negative yards. That's good. It went total punt, field goal, interception, punt, field goal, punt, touchdown, punt, interception, punt, end of game. It's a really good performance by the defense. You would have loved to have not given up that touchdown, but you get a Carrington Valentine pick. You get a Edgerrin Cooper pick. You got the 7 sacks we talked about. In total, Seattle had 56 plays, only 208 net yards. 3.7 yards per play is a phenomenal defensive performance, as is giving up only 13 points. Their quarterbacks went 20 of 33 with 128 net passing yards. 128 net passing yards on 33 attempts. 3.7 yards per play. They had 16 carries, 80 yards, 5.0 yards per carry, and 2 turnovers. Good day from the Packers defense. Yes, Geno Smith's injury definitely played a factor into this. They weren't the same. Sam Howell was 5 of 14, 24 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick, and 4 sacks. If Howell would have taken the snap and spiked it on every play, he would have had a better quarterback rating. And quite frankly, the Seahawks might have been better off in that game. So it's tough once Howell got in. And credit to Green Bay for getting after him and making it uncomfortable for the backup quarterback. But they could not do anything once Howell got in the game. Kingsley Enagbare had a really nice performance. He had that one drive where I think it was like sack, tackle right after the line of scrimmage, which is almost a second sack. And I think he got another sack after that. Like he was all over, or maybe it was just a tackle for loss, but he was all over the place. And I thought he had a nice performance. So it was nice to see that out of Kingsley. I thought the cornerbacks held up pretty well. Early in the game, there were some miscommunications, it looked like, and Keyshawn had a couple penalties. I thought both of them were nitpicky, especially the first one. Overall, I thought the corners held up well, and kudos to Carrington Valentine for getting his first career regular season interception. We can once again nitpick, you probably should have just kneeled it down there, right? But I'm not going to be too harsh on a corner trying to make a play. He got out to like the 15-yard line. They lost 5 yards by him bringing it out rather than kneeling it down. Now, you don't want to put the ball in harm's way, and you could end up with somebody punching the ball out or something like that. So probably would have preferred to kneel down there, but he's a young player, just made a big play, was trying to make a bigger play. Not gonna fault him too much for that. As we mentioned earlier, pass rush was great. Bad offensive line, you take it. I thought this is a really solid step in the right direction, and hopefully a harbinger of things to come for this defensive front moving forward. Thought Kenny looked better, like just some real positive steps for that defensive line. Like, keep giving me that, please. We'll see what they can do against the Saints this upcoming Monday on Monday Night Football. Special teams, not Daniel Whalen's best day. One really bad punt, another one that wasn't his best for sure. You had a muff punt by Jaden Reed. Thankfully, he was able to get back onto it. McManus continues to be super impressive. Nixon had a solid kick return. You had one bad angle on kick coverage. And then again, Edge Cooper had 2 tackles and an assist in kick coverage as well. So he wasn't just special on defense. He was making his presence known on special teams as well. Some miscellaneous notes here. Inactives for the day were Jacob Monk, Javon Bullard, Jair Alexander, and Malik Heath was the mystery fourth one. We hit on Bullard, Jair, and Monk in the pregame show. I thought it was going to be a DB, either Ballantyne, Rochelle, or Kitano Ladapo, but they decided to go with Malik Heath as their final inactive. Injuries in this game, Quay Walker injured, and it was a leg injury. We'll keep an eye on that one. Hopefully he's not out long, but he did not return to the game. It looked like he was in some pretty serious pain. So that's going to be one to keep an eye on. Hopefully they can get him back by the playoffs, or sooner would be great. I don't want to speculate on anything, but that'll be probably the biggest one. Jordan Love did seem to get a little bit banged up after that play along the sidelines where he kind of took a hit. Hopefully it didn't aggravate anything in any way. They will get a little bit of an extra day off since it's Monday Night Football instead of Sunday. But hopefully he's going to be okay. And then, as mentioned earlier, Christian Watson got banged up a little bit. He just took a cleat to the leg, and he said he was totally good to go moving forward. So no concern with Watson's injury status. The only other note, challenges, Matt LaFleur missed again on a challenge. He's 0-for-6 on the season. That needs to improve. You don't want to just be losing challenges. In that situation, while I never really thought he was going to win it, I could understand taking the flyer at it. They were up by enough. It would have been like just game over if they get it right. And if the risk there is that you lose a timeout in a challenge, he probably knew at that point that that's not something they were going to need in that game anyway. So it's a pretty low risk situation. And if you get it, it's just game over at that point. So even if you win that challenge like 3% of the time, it's probably worth taking it, from a risk standpoint there, because again, there's really nothing at risk that they were really losing out on. And if you get it, it's just game over. So it was a bad challenge because it didn't really seem like it had much opportunity at success, but you never know. Maybe New York gets a different angle. Maybe they rule it weirdly. You just never quite know. So I didn't hate that one from Matt, but it did seem like from the very beginning that was not going to be one that was overturned. Let's talk about the Packers playoff picture. Per the New York Times, they are greater than a 99% chance to make the playoffs at this point. Not clinched yet, but greater than 99% chance. The Packers have a 94% chance to make the playoffs, even if they were to lose their final 3 games. So if they lose to the Saints, they lose to the Vikings, they lose to the Bears, a crazy 3-game losing streak, even then they would be 94% chance and 94% likelihood to make the playoffs. You win and you're in against the Saints. They win that game against New Orleans. They will be in. We'll see if there's other clinching scenarios that maybe could happen even before Monday Night Football. And the other thing is if they win any of their remaining games, they would automatically be in as well. So they're 1 win away from officially making the playoffs. And I'm sure there's going to be some other scenarios that could get them in as well. We will learn those later this week. The division is still technically in play with the Lions lost today to the Bills. Here's what you need to have happen the remainder of the way. The Packers need to go undefeated. So they need to beat Chicago, New Orleans, and Minnesota. The Lions need to go 0-3. They have the Bears next week, then they have the 49ers, then they have the Vikings. It's pretty unlikely that they would go 0-3 and finish the season on a 4-game losing streak, right? Don't see that happening, but the Lions would need to go 0-3. The Packers would need to go 3-0. And the Vikings need to lose on Monday Night Football tonight as you're listening to this against the Bears. So Lions 0-3, Packers 3-0, Vikings lose to the Bears on Monday Night Football. That means the Bears will have had to have beat both the Lions and the Vikings, but lose to the Packers in their final 4 games, basically. So not likely, but still technically, when I say not likely, I mean not happening, period. But technically not impossible at this point. The playoff picture as of today, Lions are your 1 seed still, even with the loss. Eagles are the 2. Bucks are the 3. Rams move to the 4. Vikings at 5. Packers at 6. Commanders at 7. That is your current playoff picture, which would mean if the playoffs started today, it would be Packers at Buccaneers in the wild card round. 6 at 3. Packers at 6. Buccaneers at 3. In that scenario, your likely path to the Super Bowl would be Packers at Bucks, the opening round. If the Packers won, and assuming the Commanders then upset the Eagles, you would then go to the Lions in the second round and then probably face either the Rams, the Vikings. Well, not probably. You'd face either the Rams, the Vikings, or the Eagles in that final NFC championship. So interesting road if they would get to that point. But hey, it's going to be a tough road no matter what. The Buccaneers and the Rams solidifying themselves more in that playoff picture makes it even harder. Probably wish that was more like Seattle and Atlanta. But Alas, it's not the case. And you know what? You're going to have to go against good teams. So get ready for it. Hopefully the Packers picking up a win in Seattle gives them a little bit more confidence winning on the road moving forward. Some other NFC North notes. The Bears were officially eliminated from playoff contention despite not playing on Sunday. They play on Monday Night Football. And then the Lions lose both Aleem McNeil and Carlton Davis. And from what it sounds like, per Dan Campbell, both of them could be lost for the season. The Lions are decimated on defense. 2 brutal injuries for them with Aleem McNeil and Carlton Davis both going down with likely season-ending injuries. It sucks. Obviously not cheering for Detroit. Obviously want Green Bay to be having every advantageous situation that they can, but I hate injuries and I don't wish that upon anyone. Wish everyone was healthy all season long. It's a brutal blow for the Detroit Lions. Of course, Packers Saints Monday Night Football. We'll be breaking that game down all week long. Alvin Kamara got banged up on Sunday, so that'll be an injury to kind of keep an eye on. They gave Washington everything they could handle, had a 2-point conversion to win that game at the end. They couldn't convert on it. Spencer Rattler came in for Jake Haener. Jake Haener was completely ineffective. Rattler came in and led them to some scoring drives and a potential game winner right at the end on the 2-point conversion. Just couldn't complete it. Washington escapes, but kudos to the Saints for fighting through that. They're a tough team under Rizzi, the new head coach there, and they're battling. They're really battling. So we'll see if it's Derek Carr coming back or if it's Spencer Rattler at quarterback. I don't think it's going to be Jake Haener either way. And then what Alvin Kamara can do this week if he practices, doesn't practice, if they shut him down, we'll keep an eye on that as well. But Packers Saints Monday Night Football coming up next. And the last thing I'll say here is 30-13. We are blessed, and I mentioned this in the live post-game chat. I mentioned it on Twitter as well. We are blessed that we get to nitpick stuff. 30-13 on the road against Seattle, playoff contender, had everything to play for. It's a really good win. Are there things that they, need to do better that we can pick apart and nitpick? Absolutely. But we should be pretty pleased that we can talk about those things while still being the benefactor of a 30-13 win over Seattle on the road. A lot of teams would give for a 30-13 win against any team at any time in any venue. It's a tough place to play. Seattle had everything to play for, as I mentioned, and Green Bay went in there and really just beat them down through the entirety of that game. It's a good win for Green Bay. Shout out to our new members, Sean Gatschet, A.A. Langer, Kevin Pilch, Andrew Carney, GPG123, Andres Felipe Bernal, Eli Covert, It's DeJorn, and Brandon Aguilar. Thank you so much for signing up. Appreciate you guys a ton. Make sure to check out all those member benefits. If you have not, easy for me to say, it's 3:22 in the morning as I'm recording this. If you've not yet checked out those Pack a Day Podcast YouTube memberships, make sure to do so. I appreciate that a ton. It goes a long way. But make sure to like, subscribe, comment, give those 5-star reviews. Tell a friend about the show. Just keep showing up every day. Those things are all amazing. And I cannot thank you enough for making Pack a Day part of your daily routine. You're the absolute best. Shout out to our All-Pro and Hall of Fame members, Mo Saden, Minnesotan, PJ Wayne, John Wild, Brandon Paletta, Jennifer Wright, Boom Handle, Donald Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, Dave McCluskey, Donald Decker, Alex Huang, Arnaldo Espinoza, Peter Ataka, SoCal Pack, Jay Zimmerman, B. Brown, Puerto Rican Packer, Dan Gassford, Step Keat, Love and Football, Dylan Pat Scott, Bobby Santoro. Enjoy your victory Monday, everyone. Love this win for the Packers, 30-13. Again, we'll break it down through the course of the week. We'll get to our grades. There'll be our normal live shows through the course of this week. Monday Night Football, Packers Saints. Yes, it's not flexing anywhere. It is set in stone. We'll see if Packers Vikings gets flexed through the following week. I don't think there's any chance that stays at noon. I think it'll either go to the 3:20 window or go to Sunday Night Football, but we will wait and see what the NFL decides to do with that particular game. Enjoy your week, everyone. Make sure you're checking out Pack a Day Podcast every single day. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to get some sleep. Until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.